In this video, we're going to review how to add and subtract fractions. So we're going to start with adding, so make sure you are at the spot in your notes. So in order to add fractions, we must have a common denominator. Okay, because we really need our pieces to be the same size. So for this first example, we have 1/2 plus 1/4, and it's really hard to add these when they're not cut into the same size. So a common denominator for 2 and 4 is making both the fractions have a denominator of 4, which means I'm keeping the second one as 1/4. I don't need to change it. The second one, to make an equivalent fraction, I'm going to multiply by 1 in the form of 2/2 to make that into 2/4. So basically, instead of cutting this circle in half, it's now cut into 4ths, and I can count the fact that we now have 3/4. So when we add fractions, we add just the top, and the bottom stays the same. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video and try these on your own first, and then play the video to see your answer. So my common denominator I'm using is going to be 24. So 8 times 3 is what gives me this 24 for my first fraction, so I have to multiply by 3 on the top also. And then second fraction, to get 3 to turn into a 24, I'm multiplying by 8. So I have to do the same thing on the top to get 8/24. Okay, we're adding just the top here, so 15 plus 8 gives us 23. Denominator stays the same. Okay, with this second one, there's actually 2 different ways to think about this problem. So I'm going to show you both. So one is I can add just the whole numbers, 3 plus 1, that gives me 4, and then I'm going to think about changing these into my common denominators. So I would have 10 for each of those. So this becomes 4/10, and this becomes 5/10. So then I'm just adding the top of just the fraction part to get 4 and 9/10. Okay. Sometimes when we add fractions, we might still have an improper fraction, which means we need to increase our whole number. So watch out for that, but that is in simplest form. The other way is you could change both of these into improper fractions, add, and then back into a mixed number. So you still need a common denominator, so I'm going to just use these because I've already changed it into a common denominator. So 3 times 10 is 30 plus 4. That gives me 34/10. 1 times 10 is 10 plus 5. It gives me 15/10. Okay, this is the longer way, but sometimes it's just more helpful for students. So that gives me 49/10, which then, again, 10 can go into 49 4 times with 9 left over. So we still get to the same answer doing it that way. So I'm going to have you try 2 more adding fractions. So I kind of wrote into my space there. So your second one's 2/5 plus 5/7, and 4 and 5/6 plus 2 and 7/12. So go ahead and pause the video to give those ones a try. So now that you've given those a try, let's look and see how you did. So common denominator of 35. So I'm multiplying this first fraction by 7/7 to get 14/35. Second one, I'm multiplying 5/5 to get 25/35. I'm going to add just the top to get 39/35. So here it's still improper, so we should change it to a mixed number. So 35 goes in there once with 4 left over. So that should be number 1. Okay, number 2 here, I'm going to use a common denominator of 12. Excuse me, so I don't have to change this one. So I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 2. You do not multiply the whole number, right, because that would change the value, because this is actually 1 that we're multiplying by. So that becomes 4 and 10/12. So I'm going to add just my tops here. And then 4 plus 2 gives me 6 and 17/12. So here's what I was talking about. This is still improper. So 12 can still go in there a full time. So this 6 is going to bump up to a 7. And then we're going to have 5 left over. Good, let's flip the page to look at subtraction. So same thing, in order to subtract fractions, we also need a common denominator. Okay, so adding, subtracting, always need common denominators. So 3 and 4, we should, I'm going to use 12. Okay, 24 would work also if you like to use 24. Oop, and this is subtraction, not addition. So 3 times 4 is what's going to give me my 12. So I'm going to do 1 times 4. 4 times 3 is going to give me my 12. So I'm going to times by 3 on the top. And then same thing, just instead of adding, we're going to subtract just the top to get 1/12. So really, we're cutting this all into 12ths. Same thing here. Yeah. All right, so let's have you try some. So 5, 6 minus 2/3, 2 and 3/7 minus 1 and 2/14. Pause this video and try those two. All right, so my common denominator I'm using here is going to be 6, so I'm not changing this first one. The second one, to get 3 into a 6, I'm multiplying by 2. So I'm going to do the same thing on the top. And when we subtract the top, I get 1/6. So when we subtract mixed numbers, sometimes it's okay to leave it as a mixed number and just subtract it. You know how in addition we talked about 2 different ways. But sometimes we do want to change it to an improper fraction. And what we really want to look at is, can I subtract the second number from the first number? Do you have enough? But first, before we decide that, we need these common denominators. So I'm going to leave this as a 14. And I'm going to multiply by 1 in the form of 2/2 to get this as a 14. So now 6 subtract 2, I can do that. So I don't need to change it into an improper fraction. So I'm going to do my whole numbers first. 2 subtract 1 gives me 1. 6 subtract 2 gives me 4. Denominator stays the same. But then I can simplify this. Okay, because these can both be divided by 1 in the form of 2/2. Which gives me 1 and 2/7. All right, last 2 practice problems in the video, and then we can start working on our homework. 8/9 subtract 1/4. Okay, I'm going to write this one over here. 4 and 2/9 subtract 2/3. So pause the video. Give those a try. All right, so 9 and 4, I'm going to use a common denominator of 36, which gives me 32/36 for the first one, 9/36 for the second one, 32 subtract 9 gives me 23 over 36. 23 is a prime number, so we can't reduce that. 23 can't be divided by anything but 1 and 23. So we are good there. Second one, I'm going to change this to a common denominator of 9. So I'm multiplying by 3, so that gives me 6. So here I notice, can I do 2 subtract 6? I'm going to get a negative number. So I don't have 6 to take away here, which means I'm going to change this mixed number into an improper fraction. So 4 times 9 is 36, plus 2 gives me 38 over 9. Subtract my 6/9. That gives you 32/9. Okay, 9 can go in there 3 whole times. 3 times 9 is 27. So when we take that away, we have 5 left over. So 3 and 5/9.